Do you even know anything? Do you even know anything at all? Do you know what knowledge is? Do you know what it means to know things? Do you even know if you know what knowing is? If your answer to any of these things is no, then you're in the right place, bucko. Welcome to How to Not Be Dumb, an introduction to epistemology. So, before we go anywhere, or get into what knowledge is, we need to, outline the basics. Now, what are the basics? You need to know certain things, right? So, you need to know what a proposition is, what a belief is, what a fact is, right? Like, properly. Like, you kind of know maybe two of them. You don't really know them that well, so I'm going to explain them to you, because you don't know anything, right? Explain to you what epistemology is. Now, if you've never done philosophy before in any way, then you're not going to know what that is, because if you knew what it was, you'd have done philosophy before, wouldn't you? Finally, before we get into it, we'll talk about what different types of knowledge there are, because there are three main types. And then once we get into it, once we start getting into it, we'll get into what certainty has to do with everything. Then and only then, after I've said all those things, can you begin to become unstupid. So, what are beliefs? Beliefs are best defined as a thought that the world or the universe is a certain way, or that something in the universe is a certain way, such as the sky is blue can be a belief, or even the sky is red can be a belief. I believe the sky is red. Beliefs can also be said to be mental representations and expectations of what the world or the universe is, or may be the case in the universe. Beliefs have a truth value, meaning they can be true and they can be false. Now, propositions, the next important piece of vocabulary, things you propose. They are statements that propose that the world is a certain way. Now, these need not be true. These also have a truth value, but they are not beliefs. Beliefs need to be believed, right? Obviously. But they need not be stated. Because I can have a belief that, nobody knows. I've never said it out loud. But it's still a belief of mine, right? A proposition doesn't need to be believed, but it kind of does need to be stated, because if it's not stated, nobody cares about it. Kind of like your opinions. So, facts. Another thing that doesn't care about your opinions, they are things that are the way in the world. They are like a fact just is by definition true. That's as simple as it. I could go into what truth is. It is an important word in epistemology. However, truth is a very tricky concept, right? For your tiny little brains, because you don't know anything. So we'll just go by the Google definition of truth, which is that which is true. Okay? Now the next part. What is epistemology, right? You heard me say in the introduction, what is epistemology? And apparently this is an introduction to epistemology. So let me spell it out. Epistemology is the study of knowledge, right? It's just as simple as that. It's the study of knowledge. To know what knowledge is. Knowing what knowledge is. Which is what you're doing now. So, well done. Now that we've gone over the basics of all basics, we can actually start to talk about what knowledge actually is. So now that the training wheels are on, what is knowledge? That's the damn question, right? If you came here expecting an answer, you're more stupid than I've been saying. Philosophy is all about these types of questions that I can give you several answers to, and you might not agree with any of them. You might feel like I'm missing something. Obviously, this doesn't mean that philosophy is some kind of arbitrary thing. it's just talking, it's about things that can't be, you know, proved by science. Like, you can't answer scientifically what knowledge is. It doesn't make any sense. There you go. It just doesn't make any sense. So it's left up to philosophy. Before I actually start trying to answer that question and trying to give you more information on that, we still got to, you know, give you a bit more information, right? And that is what types of knowledge there are. From your vague and rough hunches of what you think knowledge might be, you can distinguish different types of knowledge without having a definition for it. So, there's number one, right? Acquaintance knowledge, knowing of something, right? Knowing of Mount Rushmore, like you've been acquaintanced with it, not like other types of knowledge. So then there's ability knowledge. That type of knowledge is like assistant knows how to play guitar. I know how to play an instrument. That's ability knowledge. I have the ability to play the instrument, right? And I know how to do it, which is required for the ability. And finally, this is like the big money one for philosophers, is propositional knowledge. Now, I've already told you about what propositions are. So you should be able to determine what that means. And it's like factual knowledge, right? Knowledge of propositions, knowledge of the ways in which the universe are, or the ways in which reality is. Don't know if that made grammatical sense, but oh well, doesn't matter, you get the point. And that's the big one for philosophers. So that's really what epistemology really looks at. It looks at that kind of one more. Maybe it looks at the other ones as well, but it's that kind of one that most people think about. Like, they don't really care about acquaintance knowledge and ability knowledge that much. That's like, meh. Now that we have established the basics of all basics, we can begin to go into philosophy now. Like, go into what knowledge is. To try and answer this question, we've got to go all the way back to 369 BC with Plato and the Theaetetus. I don't actually know how that's spelt, so don't copy me. I mean, no, I know how it's spelt. I don't know how it's said, because I don't know if it's Theaetetus or Theaetetus, because my teacher was very Irish, so it got a bit confusing. Plato says that knowledge has a criteria, and that criteria is JTB, justified true belief. Yeah? As in, it has to be true, obviously. The proposition has to be true, otherwise it's not knowledge, right? It's just wrong. The person has to believe in that proposition being true, and the person has to have a justified reason for believing that that is true. Right? And you think, okay, that's it. That's it. That's done. That's good enough. Why do we need to have a whole philosophical discussion about it? But then you're missing the point, because you clearly don't know enough about philosophy, because nothing's ever that good. Like, it's never that simple. Think about it like this. What is a justified belief? What qualifies as a belief, and what is truth? No, we're not going to talk about what is truth. That's like now would be a good time to kind of introduce something called the Gettier problem. Now, I'm going to do another video on that one, so, you know, keep an eye out. First, I'm going to talk about certainty, because the Gettier problem is a whole thing in itself. And also, we can't answer all those questions in one video, especially because one of them is like, it's too much to answer. The other one, it's like, it's kind of like, you know, when something is a belief, it's kind of intuitive. And the other one, we can kind of explore. And that's what most of epistemology really is. It's talking about that third one. And that third one is, what is justification? What is good enough justification? Because you can have a justified reason for a belief, but is it really good enough? Like, and that's where the Gettier problem comes in. I'll do more in depth, but I'll give you a brief summary. People have had wrong, like, they've got a justified reason, to believe something that is true. However, it doesn't really make exact sense. The justification, maybe it's misleading, but it gets them to believe something that is true, but it's just like a fluke of knowledge, right? It's a fluke. They know something by fluke, by chance, by justification that just kind of by luck let them have knowledge. Knowledge doesn't have a kind of luckiness to it, so it doesn't really make any sense to, have lucky knowledge. Anyways, so if that's the case, what's justification? Now, some people might think if you're smart doesn't mean you're not dumb though. Certainty might be the answer, right? That is a good answer and actually has been proposed by certain philosophers, such as René Descartes, saying that you can only really know something if you know it for certain. It's logically indubitable. It's infallible knowledge, and hence the theory is called Infallibilism. The only problem with Infallibilism is that if that's the criteria, that it has to be infallible, has to be undoubtable, indubitable, then, you don't really know anything. Well, which doesn't really change your position. You don't know anything. It's hard to learn other things, like other than René Descartes' famous cogito ergo sum, and which means if you don't know anything, like you probably don't. I think, therefore I am. If I'm thinking, then I have to therefore exist by necessity, because something that doesn't exist can't think. You get me? So, infallibilism is just a tough one, right? It's a toughie. So, it kind of doesn't really help us get to know more things. So, is certainty a criteria for, knowledge? Put, your thoughts in the description, in the comments. Say what you think. Start a discussion, man. Just, say anything. If you know something, which you probably don't, say something in the comments. Say what theory you think is the best. Say what, But that, for those of you who don't know anything, just keep an eye out. I'll give more videos, more theories, all of that kind of stuff. Infallibilism, you can only really know certain truths, like the cogito, basic logic, and like maths. But, maths. Maths is funny. Just ask a mathematician. He'll tell you some funny stuff about maths. It's funny stuff. So, basically, I'm going to be making a series about epistemology, epistemological theories. Like, comment, subscribe, share, do anything. If you want to see more of these videos, I need some love. So, do it. I'll be doing, like I said, I'll be doing more things. I'll do the Gettier. It's probably the next. Maybe I'll do some reliabilism. A little bit of, no false lemmas. Maybe a bit of virtue epistemology. You never know. I might, give you an all new theory. You never know. Talk about more problems like the barn thought experiment, barn town. Anyways, that's where I'm going to leave the video. Please share, subscribe, whatever. Give support. It's all good. It's all good. So I'll see you next time.